Future Islands as Long as You Are. It is 11 songs long and 44 minutes long. And yeah, Future Islands, I did not expect. I mean, they've been making albums fairly sort of generally. The
Well,
first
for a
one,
while.
Wave Like Home, came out in 2008, and kind
Hmm.
of ever since then, they've been making music pretty consistently, been on tour pretty consistently
Yeah.
until like this year. And I've been making general. I guess you would call them synth pop, but after hearing like this album and also Everything Everything, I don't know, I just had like an existential crisis with synth pop. I'm just like, what is this genre? Is it alternative? Is it
Yeah, it's an awkward genre where you incorporate a lot of like 80s sounds, almost like MGMT-ish with some of the stuff, but then you throw in like Franz Ferdinand sounds as
yeah.
well into the mix.
It's
So
just
that's
not
the thing.
poppy to
Just
me. Is this
it's
always
no,
the
God,
thing?
no, it's not poppy at all. So I would call it synth alternative is what I would call it.
Yes, you do, right? You do very much call it that. I do.
It's like that's a perfect explanation for it because some of this is definitely 80s inspired beats, kind of like that fast new ordery pace in it, and then you have some other just straight alternative rock songs into there. But it's actually it grew on me. At first listen, I did not like this album, mainly because the lead singer's voice is a little much for
Yeah,
me.
yeah. You have to be his
It's like
voice.
it's almost like Billy Corgan of Smashing Pumpkins. I mean, they're totally opposite voices, but it's something that you have like it takes you a little bit to get into, and then
Yeah,
it's like I think with the musicality of the album, the instrumentation is fantastic, production fantastic, and then that's when I got appreciation of that, and then that's the second listen through. I'm like, okay, I can now I can get into this.
yeah. When you get acclimated to the voice, it's very deep and sort of it's very like smooth sounding, very good, but also just like not what you expect to hear in the genre. It almost
No,
feels like there are a lot of
exactly.
alternative songs where like a band will bring on someone with a really good voice, like Morgan Freeman, or someone like that.
Hmm.
Fire Coming Out of the Monkey's Head that
Yep.
was done, where like you bring on someone with like a really nice voice to tell a story, and that's just how Future Islands sounds because that's just the
It's in
vocalist.
general, yeah.
But again, the thing that can rub against the wrong way is that sometimes just almost sounds like it doesn't fit the kind of production you're doing. It's like, why is this like orator speaking in front of a synth
Because
alternative band?
the first song Gladys sounds exactly like that, and I still that's the only song I don't like on this album.
Yeah,
Actually, is the opening track. I thought it was just kind of slow. The vocals were really kind of spoken almost, and just felt really out of place and awkward. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
I still can't really get into that. And then the next song for sure is a solid song, really got alternative song, and then his vocals get into it, and it's like this gorgeous like little beat that's going back and forth. It sounds like my favorite part of alternative rock, right in there where it's that experimenting just enough but staying within the bounds of the genre to push it to its limits and still have fun and get into it. Like it feels like almost like back in high school, 10 years ago, that style of alternative in the late aughts, early tens.
you
So
you just saw my on-camera
yeah,
existential crisis. That
existential
high school
crisis.
was 10
Yeah,
years ago.
yeah, it was.
Whoa. Okay, so we're moving on in the album. And yeah, I have this sort of synth alternative as a genre I very much like. I think this is like
Mm-hmm.
one of the bread and butter things for me. And going through a lot of this album, especially on the first listen, was just like, it's like I'm not. It's bland is almost the word I would want to start using because it just didn't have anything to call out to me in the beginning in the first listen. There were some like sort of higher points like Born in a War that felt like it had
Well,
some
it's pretty good.
moment to it. And it should be noted that a lot of these songs do have like a deeper sort of socio-political
Oh, for
meaning.
sure.
I mean, Born in a War is almost like about the American culture war, where like you have not even just different political parties, but based on what sort of
Mm-hmm.
subculture you grow in America,
Mm-hmm.
you believe that your culture is constantly under threat by some other thing. And so
Yes.
it heightens political discourse in a way that this is one of those things where it's like, it's not just Trump that caused this. Like, America was just like this. But the idea that you're in this culture war constantly, and culture war is actually a Bill O'Reilly terminology. But that idea makes you almost like pit yourself against others very quickly within that society. And so it creates
Yeah.
the idea of being born in a war as that song sort of lays out. So there's like really good meaning within that. It wasn't until like the later end of the album where I started to get sort of my comforts back with it, but we can continue till I get there.
Well, because after Born in a War, you have I Knew You, which is like it's a decent song. Little it slows down with I Knew You and City's Face, which are two songs which are okay. I don't dislike them, but they're okay. Just kind of streamline it a little bit. But then after City's Face, you have Waking, which is this gorgeous '80s beat into it, and it picks the album back up, and I really like that in that middle ground. I really like Waiting a lot. After that, you have Painter, which is like I would call it like your alternative pop, almost like the Killers. So that
Yeah.
song was a little disappointing in there. There's a thing of the album. There's good and bad. There's good and okay. So there's like a
Yeah.
lot of like hits and misses within there. So there's a lot of talent in there for sure. Because
I'd-
after the Painter, you have Plastic Beach, which is a fantastic fucking song.
Yeah. I was even say like the Painter and Plastic Beach are like two pretty like good ones to kind of go into. Whereas the Painter, it's again a lot about like perception in American society, where like I think the artists were describing that if you're looking at clouds, for example, you can think it looks like something, and your friend can think it looks like something else, but you're both perceiving the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that ultimate mantra that art is really subjective. It's in the eye of the beholder. Perhaps the creator knows the meaning, but perhaps the creator really doesn't. They're just putting it out into the world. And so that's kind of also just how it impacts with culture, because if you're black and experiencing America versus if you're stereotypically white and experiencing America, those experiences look like they're the same, but both those people perceive it in different ways. I think that's kind of like what the angle is trying to go into that, which is really cool. And Plastic Beach is more of like a personal image kind of song, more and very much not related to the Gorillaz album in any way.
Right. Moonlight after that is like a pretty simplified song where it's just easy drum beat, like airy vocals this time, and a great bass line in the back. And I think it's a really good song to have right after Plastic Beach. I think actually the second half of this album is pretty solid within there. And then like the last couple of songs are good, just those out of the album, because like Thrill kind of gets into more of a chill beat, slower again, similar, and then Hit the Coast is like a perfect ending track actually, I think, for it, because there's so much, a couple different styles of sounds and stuff, but I think it's almost like the XX sound of alternative rock in there, and I think it's a perfect ending track. So there's a lot of good in here. There's a lot of meh in it as well, but I did enjoy it.
Yeah.
Especially second listen through, and now kind of like going back into hitting and see what I like again still. There is some stuff in here that I'll take away from this album for sure and enjoy for a while.
Yeah. I do feel that, like, yeah, there are certain songs, Painter, Plastic Beach, Born in a War, you can take them as hit or miss. But you can, there is talent for sure from the Future Islands in this work, very clearly. My big critique is just like, as an album, it just didn't really make sense. It didn't.
No, it was very all over
a collection of songs.
Yeah, exactly. It was very all over the place. That was, again, that's what I talked about, where you have songs that are hit and miss that just didn't, because there's a kind of that 80s groove beat, there's some of that, you know, solid synth alternative rock, and then there's slowing it down, there's deconstructing some of it, and then there's adding some things that shouldn't be there at the same time. So it's just, it's all over. So it's not very cohesive at all.
And they have all the elements to make, like, you can make,
sure.
with that voice, you can make a really dope intro and, like, last two songs as an outro that gets on our, like, awards list for best album enders. And with this instrumentation, you have plenty of creative instrumentation to go around.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's just, like, sit down, make it fit together. That's the kind of upper echelon level that separates, you know, passable, decent artists who, like, have good discographies that go back to years and I think are generally all right, to like the super good upper echelon artists where like our critiques of them are really like barely critiques. It's just like
nitpicky.
I would have done it this way, but no, like this is a really big thing. It's just like, as an album, I don't like this, but I like certain songs on here quite a lot.
I can understand that. So Arbitrary Scale again is Kidnapped Political Leaders.
Actually, I will give this one to Gretchen Whitmer because it's the most like, you tried. Either that.
That's actually a really good saying. That's not bad. Or even better, the failed Venezuela coup that happened last year with what was the core?
Silver Core.
Silver Core, with the Silver Core militiamen, as I like to call them. You know,
the Silver Core Weekend Warriors.
Yes. Civil Core Weekend Warriors who tried to do it and got caught by a fisherman. Yes, that's this album.
When the Venezuelan fisherman is busy torturing Jay Inslee.
That's so rough.
to interrupt the Venezuelan coup. Anyways, yeah, that's that album.